Good morning and welcome to the River Loddon. It's the upper reaches in Berkshire. It's a stretch that I have fished numerous times over my angling career. Once known for some very big barbel. My chub personal best stands from this stretch actually. And it's also had some really good perch fishing now. I haven't perch fished it or seriously perch fished it for a few years. I think the best that we caught here, and it was a customer of mine on a guiding day, had a 311 once, but yeah, we used to catch lots and lots of twos, quite a few upper twos and the odd three. Not too sure, I think I have heard of it doing a 4 in the past, but that's just, you know, what I've heard through the grapevine. But I've come back today, I'm fishing some live baits. I didn't get here or fishing for the perch as early as I would like because part of the day is catching some live, so I managed to just go downstream a little bit, and it seems catching live bait is harder every year that passes, but I slaved away for about an hour and a half and caught a few perch. It seems to be tiny little perch that are making up the bulk of the small fish nowadays. One little roach and fortunately 3, 4, 5, I don't know, 4 or 5 gudgeon, which are my favourite bait for perch. So I've come to this swim. It's very, very shallow, but straight away I saw a predator strike up here. It's deeper on the far bank. You can see by the actual different colour in the water where it's slightly deeper, but it's still really, really shallow here. But it is a swim that I've caught perch on before. Upstream, there's some trees that have fallen in. They're not normally here, weren't when I came, but they've obviously come downstream, got stuck when the water's been flowing through. It's really, really low at the moment. And at the bottom of the swim, I've got some nice rushes here where a predator, pike or perch, can, you know, sit away out of sight and then ambush anything that comes past. So I'm just going to fish little live baits. I haven't got a lot of time. I'll quickly run through the rig again and try to answer a few comments from the video I did when I was up on the Kennet and Avons. So please, if you've got any comments, please make them, send them in. I'll try my best to answer them as soon as possible. Please hit the subscribe button and give me the thumbs up if you enjoy the video. So as I say, not long to go. I've only got 2 or 3 hours. I'm going to try a few noted swims that I've caught perch in the past, but who's to say that I'll catch them from there today, or if I catch anything at all. So as I say, it's just nice to be back. Last year I came back and did a little video on chub and bread, and a friend of mine said, oh, it's worth coming back and, you know, fishing for the chub. And amazingly, I can't remember, I had at least 2 if not 3, and one was a good 5 plus. So yeah, the river's certainly coming back, and as I say, with a little stock in from the EA, from their Calverston fish farm in the next few days of 500 barbel, some chub, roach and dace, I think it might just put a little bit of life back into the Loddon. I'm not too sure what's happening in this swim. Maybe we got some very, very small perch. Obviously I missed that bite earlier on, but that didn't look like a small fish. At the moment I'm getting a bit concerned because there's a lot of wasps about, and I'm guessing, you know, there's a nest in the bank. I don't want to disturb that. So yeah, but every now and again the float, which I can see just under the surface because it's probably only about 2.5 foot deep on the far bank here, pops up and the bait gets really, really you know, just going mad. And normally when that happens, the inevitable is that rod tip's just going to go doink and then straight over, but it hasn't actually happened. But it's obviously panicking a little bit every now and again when something comes up and looks at it. Now this swim, or this swim just to the right above, was a very, very good chub swim. So I've never actually caught a chub on a live bait. So yeah, that might be them out there, but I've got a funny feeling there's probably a couple of 2 or 3, you know, a couple of small perch out there coming up every now and again, looking at that live bait, making it panic a little bit and not really taking it. Or it might just be the time of day. As I said, first thing in the morning is really, really the best time, or late, you know, as it's getting dark, those low light periods when little fish are most active. So yeah, normally if they're perch or pike, it's just tap and wallop, but I'm not too sure what's going on. But we'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll move on. Well, I was hoping this was going to be a big perch. I was fishing in a swim and I noticed a boil on the far bank, so I've just come round, put a little live bait out, and unfortunately this little jack's turned up. This is the problem we have up here. Although there might be a few big perch here, it's getting through these. So but at least it's a little bit of action, and that came as soon as I put it in wallop. I didn't even, you know, the fish probably didn't ever have time to settle and right itself, and this little jack come along. So we're up and running, but hopefully we'll get a big perch later today. But yeah, you just got to keep getting the bites and play the numbers game. I've just come down to the side stream, and as I said earlier, sometimes when with perch, if you put a live bait in a swim, it's almost immediate, and sometimes it's just quite, you know, good to do as many swims as you possibly can, even ones that you haven't tried, you know, in the past, because rivers do change from year to year. I'm just looking at the little small side stream here, and I left all my kit there and I just came for a walk, you know, and quite often, as I said, that lead will hit the bottom, and that little splash from that like half-ounce lead I'm using is enough for a predator to kind of react. And quite often that bait doesn't even have time to right itself and it's away, and that's what happened in here. And although it's not a big perch, it is a perch. It's only a tiny little one, but amazing how big a bait that can get in a mouth like that. I had a gudgeon on there and I played that fish into the net, and the gudgeon's head was down the throat where they hit it, turn it and swallow it in seconds. So the importance of striking early using barbless hooks is mega important. But it's a perch, but it's not as big. Well, it's a million miles away. I want one about 3.5 pounds bigger than that. But can't be greedy on a day when I'm back on a river just trying to find and locate a few fish. Well, I've just come down into what many would classify as probably one of the best swims on the stretch. It's a big bend, plenty of cover down here. It used to be a lot deeper, but it's silted up in close. And but then again, our rivers, as all our rivers, are struggling with depth at the moment. We think we've had a bit of rain, but we haven't had a lot. What we've had's not got down into the springs, and it's certainly not got into the rivers or changed them a great deal. This used to feel and be a lot deeper, but as I said, I've fished it many times in the past, and it's not one that's been that kind to me. I have caught 2 pound perch here, but generally if I come in here and I put a live bait in, I get one of these. It's like deja vu. One of these. Small jack. I did have a bite off cast before. I'm only using fluorocarbon. I'm really after the perch. And that tiny little jack come along. Put a bend in the rod. Yeah, good sport on the perch gear, but it's not what I'm after. And it's generally what I find I catch in this swim. But the swim behind me off the high bank was the swim that my customer had a 311 in, so without a doubt it's one of those swims that can come in and it can be kind to you, but for me, not here. And the swim over there off the high bank, I think we've only ever had one perch out there, or decent perch, and that was a 311. So coming towards the end of the session, as you can see, the clouds gone, blue sky. It wasn't meant to be like this. They said we might get a bit of sun, But early afternoon now, I've probably fished about, how many swims? 6 swims. Nothing to really write home about, but you never know when you come back to a river after so many years. You just got to keep going through the swims, getting bites, and eventually, I'm sure there's a few surprises here still. Okay, this is probably a good time just to run through the tackle I'm using. Nice and simple. As you know, most of my fishing is pretty simple. When it gets complicated, it's normally because I've lost confidence, but today I'm keeping it nice and simple, slightly different to that I was using on the Kennet and Avon Canal earlier this year. If you haven't looked at that video, take a look. It had a lot of people look at that, a lot of comments. And before I go through the tackle, what I'm just going to do is just refer to a couple of comments, please. As I said earlier, keep those comments coming. So one of the comments was do I not, I'm using a float, but do I not use that float as for bite indication? No, I don't. I use the end of my rod, quiver tip is my bite indication. This float is simply sunk under the surface, and it's keeping the line from the float down to the lead tight. And coming off of this actual main line is my hook link. And that little fish is trying to get to the bottom, and this float is trying to put it up all the time. So what you're trying to do is not allow your bait to get to the bottom, you know, potentially get snagged, or just, you know, go quiet, not move. It's, if you're using a bait, it's always trying to get to the bottom. This float is always pulling it up. Now, ideally, it's really good when you're fishing close quarters off your rod tip, because obviously you line off the rod tip straight down, straight to the float, straight to the lead. When you start casting it across the river, canal, or further out in the lake, it begins a little bit harder, because if you've got the rod tip up and you tighten down, all it's going to do is flatten that. So what you have to do is just let a bit of line out to let that float come back up, but also that line is in contact with the float and the quiver tip, if you can get my meaning. So you can see the angle coming down from the rod tip, but you don't want to have that really tight because it'll pull it down. Just have enough tension there, just so the float is there, trying to get to the surface, and as soon as a bite and a predator hits that, what you'll normally get is a tap, and then the rod will just slam over. So very simple setup, and that's why we use a float. Now, just running through, the rod I'm using is my Kevlar barbel. It's a 12-foot, beautiful rod, so versatile. And I've got a 4-ounce quiver tip. As I say, I've got the tip in there, a little bit of tension to that float, and that tip is what tells me what's happening under the surface. Quite often the tip will start knocking, going mad as the live bait is getting a little bit like, what's going on? Something's just come up behind me or approached, and then all of a sudden you get the tip just tap and go over. Lovely rod, and it's just teamed up with a small 4000 Shimano with 10-pound main line on. That might sound a little bit overgunned, but I've had pike in the past to, you know, 15-18 pound here when I've been perch fishing. So you know, if you encounter a half decent pike, or believe me, if you catch a 3.5 pound, 4 pound perch, they fight as well. So you need the, you know, the kit just to land anything you're hooked. And then I've got a Drennan 6.4 gram loafer 4 swan. It's attached with 2 rubbers, and I can just move that up and down, but potentially you don't want it too close to your hook bait, because obviously it might spook a fish. So have it sort of like 2.5 foot up. Above, what I've got here is a little 3-way swivel. Now, a friend of mine gave me those, and the good thing about a swivel is they don't move. You've got, you know, 3 areas there. One, you can attach your hook link. Here I'm using the Reflow Power. It's £8.15. Again, might sound a bit heavy, but I've already been bitten off once before or earlier in this swim, so you need a little bit of, you know, resistance there. If I'm getting too many pike, I have gone down and started using the Corum smoke screen, I think it is, microbraid. It's £15. It just gives you a little bit more protection, but when I'm just perch fishing, I'd rather use the fluorocarbon or the Reflow Power. The Senex fluorocarbon was absolutely fantastic. This is £6.5, so, you know, fluorocarbon, invisible to those predators, and yeah, it does the job for me. I'm using a size 10 Gardner Talon tip, probably something like that. It's barbless, very important. Use a barbless hook, because when those perch hit that bait, if you just pour yourself a coffee and you're not looking at that rod and it's gone, they've turned that bait, they've swallowed it, and you're going to actually have to get that hook out. So a pair, you know, a little pair of forceps, but basically strike as soon as you think a predator has hit. Barbless, and then all I do is I save all my elastic bands from the Postman, not that I get many nowadays. A little bit of elastic band once you put that small live bait on, just to secure it on. As I said, 3-way swivel there. In the past I've used float stops, 2 below, 1 above. Sometimes when you strike they move, which takes the power out of the strike. That's the disadvantage. But the advantage is if you're fishing a venue where it can go from a deep pool to shallows, you can just move that, you know, move that accordingly. Or where those predators, if you've got fish up on the surface hitting small fry, you can move that, fish your hook bait higher in the water. In this case it's fixed, 3-way swivel. These are, I said, a friend of mine gave me these black 3-way swivel, and they're made by Tsunami. So as I say, I don't know exactly how strong these are, because 3-way swivels, they tend to get quite big to get, you know, a powerful one. But these look the business to me. They haven't let me down today, and I will keep using them until they do let me down. And then as again, I've got a rotten bottom here made of 4-pound 4-ounce suplex. Rotten bottom, basically if that lead gets caught in a snag, or when you're playing a fish it gets snagged, the chances are that 4-pound, well, it will, that 4-pound line will break. You can tie a little knot in it. Knots in your line are weaknesses. And then down here I've just got a little link swivel where I can change the size of the lead. I was using an ounce earlier, but I'm down here, I'm just using a 1/2 ounce, what's this, a 1/2 ounce bomb now. So I can quickly change that to suit the current. Small hook, I don't like using big hooks because I find a small hook makes my live bait work more naturally. If you put a size 6 on there and you sink it, you know, I just feel it's too big. But again, you use the size of hook to the size of bait you're using. Today I've been using gudgeon and a roach, and it was the roach that I put out that I got a bite off on the pike straight away, that silvery flash. Gudgeon, minnows I like for perch if I can get them. Minnows normally, gudgeon no. And obviously roach, that silvery flash, they're great for perch, but generally put one out here and it's a pike. So tackle, really simple. You know, I've caught a couple of fish today, had a couple of chances, but I'm going to go move back now and just try back in the big pool up there, because that's in the shade. Once the sun comes out, fishing a pool here, well, it's not a pool anymore, it's a shallow bay. When the bright sun's on, it's probably not the best idea. Hit those sunny areas in the morning before the sun gets up, and then once the sun gets up, go and hit those shaded areas. So yeah, a couple more swims to try, and then, you know, call it a day, and hopefully come back. And as I said, because I do think there's a little bit of a few decent fish here to be caught. Okay, well, I'm going to call this my last swim. I'm not going to go to the pool. I did fish it when I first arrived. Didn't have anything. I had a small pike up there. So I'm going to just try down here. This is the swim where, as I said, my customer had a 311. You don't get many. I'm also calling it day because I've run out of live bait. I did throw a couple of the perch back and I'm down to a small perch now. I'm not a great lover using perch for perch. Don't mind using them for zander on the Thames, but I've never had a great deal of success. Again, this swim always used to be. Seems so much deeper, but the river is so low. So I've got a small perch down there. I think if I'm going to get something, it'll probably be a pike on this. So yeah, I'm going to call this my last swim. It's coming up to about 1:30 now, so I've been here for, well, I started fishing about 10, so a little bit longer than I was expecting, especially after catching the lice this morning. Love to stay until it gets dark and probably go and fish the top pool, but it's just the way it goes. But I've had a really enjoyable few hours coming down, treading the ground that I used to tread when the big barbel were here. I can remember having a 15-pound barbel out of this swim. This used to be a banker barbel swim and a banker chub swim. But don't normally get many perch in here, but as I said, if you do, it's generally a big one. So I'm going to give it about 15 more minutes, 10 minutes, and knock it on the head. But certainly had enough action to come back and have a few more sort of like roving sessions through here just to see if there are any big perch about, which I'm sure there are. It's just about a matter of me getting down here, fishing at the right time and finding where they are. So I hope you enjoyed the video. As I said, please subscribe, make some comments. I'm sure somebody's going to say perch, not for perch, little perch are brilliant for big perch. Sure they are. It's just a confidence thing with me. I'd rather be using, you know, a little dace, a little chublet, a little roach, or if I can get a gudgeon, and if not, you know, I'm quite happy using a minnow. So yeah, please make some comments, hit that thumbs up button and the subscribe button, and see you very, very soon.